I'm just going to introduce our speakers. We have Elaine Koplow, retired English teacher and union organizer. She once organized for the Teamsters Union and doesn't even look like a truck driver, does she? She's director of the Sussex County Writers Roundtable and associate editor of the Stillwater Review. She's the author of 3 poetry collections, Sketchpad, The Way the Light Comes Through, and Alone with the Leaves. Jane Ebihara, who we all know pretty well since she hangs out here sometimes, is a retired middle school teacher and associate editor also of the Stillwater Review. She's the author of 3 poetry collections, A Little Piece of Morning, that's morning with the O-R, O-U-R, I mean, A Reminder of Hunger and Wings, and This Edge of Rain. Her 4th title, Morning Again, is forthcoming this summer. Jane and Elaine have been here before and done presentations, and they've been fabulous. So really looking forward to this. Both Jane and Elaine have a few extra copies of their books with them. For anyone who's interested, could see them after the program. So, without further ado, you're up. You notice I was swiftly corrected when I wasn't close enough to the mic. You got to be right.
We've been
Maybe
told.
I should use this one.
Huh?
I think I should.
You think? Maybe so. This is just because if I don't bring it up here, I will need it. So it's really just an ornament. Yeah. I think I'm a little taller. Okay. Can you hear me? Okay, great. Thank you so much for inviting us again to share some poetry with you for National Poetry Month. Just a word about the title. There's a poem there. I don't know if the title was on there or not, but we titled the program, There's a Poem There. Both Elaine and I have found that very often in conversation with friends and other poets and everyone really, someone will be relating an anecdote, a story, an observation, a feeling, and someone else will pipe in and say, there's a poem there. So when we were trying to organize what we wanted to do today, we opened it up for ourselves by naming this program, There's a Poem There. And the poems we chose don't have a common theme. They don't have a common thread, but we chose them to kind of illustrate that diversity of subjects from which poems can be born. Sometimes, I wanted to say initially, a poet starts writing a poem about something and another subject takes over entirely. I see some heads nodding in the audience here. That's a joyful thing when that happens. It's a surprise to the reader as well as to the writer as well as to the reader or the listener. And I would ask you maybe listen today for moments in some of our poems when the subject that you think is up front turns entirely to something else. We're going to share possibly a word or two about the origin of these poems. Otherwise, we're just going to share with you today some of our poems. We're going to go back and forth. I'm going to read my poem, she's going to read hers. This first poem I'm going to read came about because I often stand and look out my window, and I noticed to my horror really that like 4 of the poems I'm going to read today all really started with me standing in my kitchen looking out the window. But this one had to do with a new neighbor who moved into my neighborhood, and he's a blind man. I had not met him yet, and he always looked so peaceful and contented when he was walking by. And I grew very curious about how did he know when he made his way home. And this is called A Sense of Home. The new neighbor sweeps his white-tipped cane from one edge of the sidewalk to the other, his face lifted to the sun. He makes his measured way around the block, listening his way home. Does he hear the soft scuttle of squirrel, the woodpecker tapping, the wing whistle of a dove taking flight. Perhaps it's scent that evokes his smile, freshly mown grass, needles of pine, woods still damp from recent rains. Surely he reads each curve in the walkway, each incline, each crack in the cement. Maybe he counts each step. I close my eyes. He's out of my sight now. I close my eyes, see him tap to the door, turn for one last taste of this September sky. And I have since met this neighbor. His name is Bart, and I read that poem to him after I kind of tracked him down on the sidewalk one day and stood in the middle of the sidewalk and read it to him. And he gave me the greatest compliment when I finished. He said, "Are you sure you're not blind?" I want this.
Can you hear me? Okay, I'll use this.
Okay.
I just want to echo what Jane said, that there's a poem everywhere. I have a poem about an eagle I saw one day driving into Newton. I have a poem about dog poop. Dog poop. I'm going to spare you that one. This one that I would like to read is simply about a neighbor I saw in my neighborhood. Just, probably driving in my car, see him. I don't know much about him. A guy you can learn from. That's Jack, my uphill neighbor in the house next door. Don't know much about him. Keeps mostly to himself. We nod across the fence. Divorced. Kids drop by once each year at Christmas. Don't stay long. Dogs well behaved. Quiet. Days past he used to hunt. Limps a little, but he gets around. Up on the ladder for the gutters, out on the lawn for the leaves. I watch the way he handles his chainsaw. Keep an eye on his stance. He's a guy you can learn from. The way he caulks his windows for winter, finds ways to keep his firewood dry, and clears the runoff from his driveway. The way he carries his pain. And this poem was inspired by an overpass down by Knowlton on Route 94. You've probably seen it too. It's just graffiti that people leave. They leave their mark here and there. This is called Where Are They Now? Where are they now, Mona and Frank, whose names still adorn the steel overpass on Route 94? Writ large in all caps, a pastel pink, I'll start over, thank you. Where are they now? Where are they now, Mona and Frank, whose names still adorn the steel overpass on Route 94? Writ large in all caps, a pastel pink for her, for him a powder blue, a yellow forever encircled by hearts, faded now from days of sun, nights of rain, years of neglect. Prom night, perhaps, at North Warren High, Mona with worry, Frank on a dare, or a late night caper, the parents in bed, drunk with the future and the need to proclaim, they enshrine their feelings for all to see. Emboldened by love, embraced by the dark, they emblazon their names on the beam of the bridge, the pollen skill churning in moonlight below them. Did they seal their commitment at the Knowlton clerks? Or go separate ways? Did they weather the years as well as the words? Mona and Frank, where are they now?
Sometimes it's what's going on in the world around us. Often it's what's going on in the world around us that generates a poem. And sometimes I think a poem is the only way to speak the unspeakable. This poem has an epigraph that comes from the Washington Post in 2024, which is when I wrote the poem. And the epigraph reads, "There have been 417 school shootings since Columbine." This was my response, called the Yet Another. It is the day after when I take the path along the pollen skill, the river high and rushing from recent rains. Nothing is broken here. Armloads of wild phlox rim the road with white and shades of purple. A lone angler stands near the bank, waist deep in the stream. 3 mallards take flight as one, silent and swift, barely a foot above the water. Startled too, a trembling of goldfinch, 9 or 10 at least, lift roadside, then settle in unison, elfin flames high in the limbs of an arching willow. Here I am at the window again. Seems like a lot of my poems lately are generated by aging. I have no idea why that is, but it's happening. We've heard about it, yeah. This is called Late Autumn. This has a turn to it. Just yesterday, the tree against the window blazed in dusky light. Autumn rusted leaves graced the view. Today, the tree's stripped limbs arch over a swell of faded pageantry, burnt copper, tangerine, russet, bronze. Summoning the alphabet, I struggled to recall the tree's name, reach the D's, and the tree is a dogwood again. I've been losing words, not just names of trees or people I once knew, but names of things. Kitchen tongs, nuthatch, wheelbarrow, artichoke. Words I could do without, no doubt. But winter nears, exposes a horizon summer conceals. Spring will return to soften the landscape. Still there is no word to stop the leaving. This is what the seasons give, lessons in the language of loss. I have another one. Sometimes the most mundane task can bring on a poem, a surprising poem. This is called Sorting. Housebound for the 4th nor'easter of the month, I decide it's time to cull my spices. It's spring, still frigid winds empty snowy boughs onto the already burdened yard. Inside, I empty shelves of gummy tins and bottles, some of which I'm sure came with me from marriage one over 40 years ago. I shake garlic powder, cloves, parsley, and onion flakes into the trash, tribute to innocence and culinary ignorance, to a time of tuna casseroles torn from the pages of Women's Day, hamburger helper and boxed mac and cheese, what I called cooking then. Nothing lasts. The snow piles. I had remnants of marriage too. Hungarian paprika, garam masala, 5-spice bouquet to the growing mound. All relationships end in death, divorce, desertion. Roasted sesame seeds, dill weed, peppercorns, marjoram, sage, something called Joe's stuff, unopened. At what point in my life was that a good idea? Winds whipped the snow to drifts. Empty containers, rinsed and ready to recycle, line up across the counter. It will be fresh herbs now, and spices purchased with purpose, carefully seasoned meals for one.
Of course, as you can imagine, family stories often yield stories themselves and provide inspiration. A family story in my family was that my grandmother was a mail order bride. And actually, my grandpa went and picked her up, so it's partly true. He settled in South Dakota, and this is a poem about them. One night in Winnipeg, 1913. Far from the Cossacks and pogroms, the roundups and restrictions, my grandfather crossed the plains west from Ellis Island to make a home in South Dakota. A barren land, windswept and dry, but lush with opportunity. Long before Tinder or Facebook or Match, he saved the fare to Winnipeg, the nearest Jewish community, to find himself a wife. They met, they talked, they married and returned. Straightforward, simple, no tuxedo or fancy gown, no honeymoon or in-laws. Not love at first sight, but over the course of 50 years. Two strangers embracing an Orthodox life, the freedom valued most, denied to them before. Wedded to their faith, they kept the Sabbath, raised a family, built a life. Life was easier then because it was harder. Were they happy? I asked my father once. He said the question had never come up. This one comes strictly from memory. I can remember this far back. It's called When Joe Died. Sick though he was, he kept the store open day after day, and day after day we'd go there. Joe's Variety, piled high, floor to ceiling with toys, model kits, and penny candy, fireballs and licorice strings, butterscotch and caramel chews, bubblegum and sweet tarts. Joe's, our after-school stop. His daughter Cheryl, part of our group. A giggle of girls, he called us. We'd gather outside, the line snaking in single file, stuff our pockets with all that a quarter could buy, then thread our way back out to the sidewalk, showing off our hoard, trading up or down, sharing the bubblegum comics. Mouths bulging, pockets crammed, we'd mosey on to the library for an afternoon of research projects and note passing, surreptitiously unwrapping morsels deep inside our pockets, under the watchful eye and persistent frown of Mrs. Croak, the librarian, popping bubbles behind her back. Together since middle school, we had survived the duck and cover days of the Cold War, joyed in slumber parties and dances, sweated over exams, mocked teachers and parents in private. We died a little the day a fellow student got shot, but his death was hushed up by the grown-ups around us. And we died again when Kennedy was killed. The high school was suddenly small and insignificant when we returned to class. Graduation night, amid smiles and cheers, we took the stage one by one as they called our names. But when Cheryl's name was called and no one appeared, a stillness fell as the auditorium filled with the silence of knowing, because when Joe died, it all died.
Oh, good grief. Here I am at the window again. Where I live, there are a lot of stray cats, some of them feral, some of them of unknown, I don't know where they came from. This is simply called Stray. Mornings I watch you lumber by, your graceful strides, your effortless leaps, slackened now by a belly that sways to your 4-beat gait. You are heavy with young, lost, abandoned, or born in the wild to a world that barely admits you are there. And even I only conjure your life, invent you in memory. You crossing this quiet street, slipping by like something dreamed into these woods where vole and chipmunks and birds scatter, wary of your feral ways. These woods where soon you'll find a place to lay down your parcel of easy prey. Little warrior, little saint, I've carried no burden like yours, faced no such hardship, loneliness. Forgive my arrogance, how I dare surmise your hardship, assign imagined doom to the young you are soon to suckle. How useless I am to you, full of pity and meaningless mercy. On a lighter note, sometimes poems come from the most unlikely places. This is one of them, a short poem. Any of you who have taught school know that precious time between classes when you can run to the ladies' room and back, maybe, is a very important time of day. And this poem, I took such a dash to the ladies' room. I was teaching middle school, and inside the ladies' room, there was a young teacher who was pregnant. And I made it back to class on time, but I had this poem in my head already written by the time I got there. It's a short poem, 2 moments. In the ladies' room, she lifts her shirt, caresses her belly, swollen, tight, round. He kicks, rolls, presses against the wall of her abdomen, pulses toward her fingers, splayed wide in warm embrace. Soon he will know blue, the touch of fingertips to lips. She will teach him soft, sky, mother, universe, goodbye. And he will leave his stories pressed into the palm of her outstretched hand.
This poem was inspired by a stretch of road that I traveled. I used to travel often, going up to the Adirondacks or the Catskills, and it's just on the New York State Thruway, so thus it's a very poetic title, Thoughts on the New York State Thruway. Roundabout exit 22, you can see the Adirondacks to the north, Catskills to the south. A full tank of gas, your hands on the wheel. For a minute, you can go anywhere. Go west, the American mantra. When the chips fall, when the rent comes due, when the phone call comes, go west. Seek your fortune, change your name. Begin anew, all is there for the taking. To the east, the city with its bright lights beckons. To the west, the meadow and the stars. The allure of the exit. For a minute, you can go anywhere, as if it were the future we sought and not a different past. This one was inspired, well, a lot of things, but for one, the rummage sale that the fellowship has each year here. Because every year I contribute items, and I go through the house saying, what do I need that for? Maybe, why am I keeping that? And but then this other voice comes in that says, if I've been saving it for 50 years, why do I want to give it away now? So, lost and found and lost. That scarf you left on the chair in the cafe on 45th still haunts you. Its history hangs in the air. Memories woven into the silken strands of blues and grays. Its softness, everything about it evokes a story, told and retold, if only to the self. Far from forgotten, embellished over time, whatever was given or found, stolen or bought, keeps its storied past. Given by someone long dead, perhaps, or an heirloom handed down, you the keeper now. Those deer antlers picked up on your walk in the woods. The turtle lamp that once sat in the family room on Townsend Street where all the trouble began. On your table now by the flowered couch. The baby shoe rescued when Josh kicked them off in the sandbox that sunny August day, the other never found, soft on your fingers just like his skin. And even that rusty battery lantern that cheered us all night after dreary night when Hurricane Sandy left us in the dark for days, how we danced around it, holding hands, chanting, rain, rain, go away. It should all go to the dump or Goodwill, the Salvation Army, or the local rummage sale. But what becomes of the story it held? Memory and object detached. Into the story graveyard it goes with childhood, lost love, and the wind. This one was inspired by driving over to Jane's house one day. I was driving through the Tranquility Valley and all the farms there, and I looked over and all the cows in this field were lying down, and I just got to thinking, So there's an epigraph for this poem by Oscar Wilde. He said, "The true mystery is the visible, not the invisible." Who tells the cows? Who tells the cows in the field to lie down? How do they know when to stand? How does the flock know which bird to follow? Who decides which one should lead? Where do they learn to navigate? Where do fish learn to school? Magnolia buds stay fat through the winter, undisturbed by the cold. Where do they learn to weather the weather? Watch as the sunflower turns its face to the sun, its back to the dark, each slender stalk pivoting with the light. Watch as the caterpillar learns to fly. Once, forlorn and spent, I wandered through the garden and came upon the peony, newly dressed in summer red, its velvet petals soft and reassuring. I ran my fingers along its delicate edges, so fragile, thinking the storm would surely take it that night. But they folded themselves together at dusk and opened in the morning to the sun.
This is our last poem, but before I read it, I just want to thank you all. You're a fabulous audience. I like looking at your faces. This has an epigraph too. It's by Ted Kooser, and the quote says, "What would be wrong with a world in which everybody were writing poems?" And I don't mean to suggest by this poem that everybody should write poems or needs to write poems. But certainly, I think it's fair to say we should all pay attention and notice when those poems are found out there. This is called Poets All. Imagine everyone a poet. All the cars on the off-ramp driven by poets, poets palming plums in the market, the plumber under your sink, poet. The doctor with stethoscope to your chest, the policeman, the politician, the policeman, imagine the politician, the policeman on the corner, the child in the sprinkler, and the one picking dandelions in the field, the homeless man asleep on the sidewalk, the farmer on the plow, the postman, the priest, poets all. What if everyone were paying attention, pausing for cricket song, starlight, sorrow, storm, the wail of sax in a subway tunnel? What if everyone weeded words until only the perfect remained? Would the globe be warmed with words, littered with song? Would time be lavished watching a man tie his father's shoe, a vulture soar through growing light, a meteor fall, a willow sway? Would everyone listen, hear the cries of the broken, the forgotten, the lost? Thank you. Yeah.
Just as a finale, I ran across this quote just yesterday by Derek Walcott. He said, "The fate of poetry is to love the world in spite of history."